If you want to be an entrepreneur, there are a lot of traits that everybody needs to have, but the top three has got to be tenacity, stick-to-itiveness, and optimism. You've got to believe in yourself. And that's what I did. I bet on myself. And I said, I'm going to dig myself out of it. That's something that I'll definitely hang my hat on. Monetarily, didn't feel very good. Looking back on it now, I'm proud of the fact that I was able to stick to it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hart Inspired, the show dedicated to highlighting individuals in their pursuit of authentic leadership. We peel back the layers to uncover the roadblocks we all face, explore the actions we can take, and how to persevere towards the best version of ourselves. It is my hope that you'll be inspired by their story and gain some insights to help you in your own journey. Chris Lolamia is a successful entrepreneur and change leader. Timing is everything. After a successful career in corporate, in 2008, Chris started a business from scratch. Surviving and thriving a recession, he built a professional home repair business, The Trusted Toolbox. Faced with a new challenge in 2020, Chris continues to thrive, focusing on customer service, training, process, and people. In this episode, we will talk about what it means to be resilient, which may include some tips and recommendations, including one of my favorite topics, food and wine. Please welcome my guest, Chris Lolamia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show, Hart Inspired. I'm excited about today's episode. This is a series about resilience. And for those of you who, unless you were living under a rock, remember 2020, March of 2020 to be exact, we've all been faced with resilience. So for today, my guest is Chris Lolamia, is going to share his journey. He's faced resilience a few times, correct, Chris? So
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about that. And I know we're going to also talk about some other favorite subjects of mine, which we'll leave for the end. But I'm going to turn it over to Chris. And, you were in corporate America before you became an entrepreneur. And so what was that like for you transitioning, and what was it like being in that space?
So to begin with, in the corporate world, I had a pretty good run. I came out, I have my master's in mechanical engineering, went to work in manufacturing, quickly learned I needed to learn more about business. So I either was go back to school or I went to work for a company called Accenture and started working in the finance world and really got on the Bank of America merger wagon. Found my way into the commercial loan world and then was hired on at a small bank in the Southeast called Truist now, which was SunTrust, to run the commercial loan ops. So I had a pretty good run. At that point, I was 33 years old. I had that job, corner office, 400 people working for me. Really had to learn a lot about leadership skills for a distributed workforce. 400 people were spread out around the Southeast. But in the corporate world, you do a lot of status reporting. You do a lot of covering your ass. You do a lot of defending your turf. And it wasn't really focused on customers. It was more focused on defending your domain and your territory. And it really started to wear me out. I always would tell people I'm a realist, but really in corporate America, you're not allowed to be an optimist or an entrepreneurial thinker because then you don't fit in the box. You don't march along like everybody else. And it was tough for me. And I really started to get really down on myself. And I had always said when I was 17 years old that I was going to start my own business by the time I was 35. And I had written down on a piece of paper that I was going to have a manufacturing business with 50 people working for me, providing parts to the automotive industry because I'm from Michigan originally, and that's all we knew. But I picked my head up at 36 and said, wow, I'm not doing anything. I'm still working in corporate America. I was intoxicated with the world. I was making very good money. Like I said, from the outside looking in, especially when we talk about how people are really feeling versus how they project outwardly. Inwardly, I was feeling pretty depressed. It was pretty miserable to be around at home, and I wasn't having fun. So I made the leap. I came home one day and told my wife, I said, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm throwing my jacket across the room. She said, whoa, Sparky. You better have a plan before you just start jumping off because we got kids. We got a lifestyle. I'm like, ooh.
You got bills.
Yeah, those two. So I took about a year in 2006 and said, okay, on April 2nd of 2007, I'm going to leap out into something. And that was a year of planning. This wasn't my first idea. Today, I have a company called The Trusted Toolbox, home repair and projects. We're a remodeling and handyman company now. But I developed that business plan over the 6 months leading up to it. And off I jumped in 2008, April
Yikes.
15th. 2008 was my first job.
Yeah. So for anyone who is not familiar, doesn't remember, 2008 was the first go around of recession in our time in corporate America for sure. So
Right. So that was the Great Recession. And
Yeah.
we had been through dips. So, I'd been in the corporate America world when the dot-com bust happened.
Yep.
I was in banking when the dot-com bust happened. But you know what? It didn't impact me directly. I was still getting my check every 2 weeks. I still had my 401k getting filled up. I still had my health care benefits. It didn't impact me. So I jumped off right then at the beginning of 2008 to go out there with no safety net. And that was to go. And it was tough because in April of '08, everybody kept saying it's not going to be that bad, especially in the Atlanta market, Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm at. But it quickly showed itself to become the Great Recession, as it were. So we got to feel what it was like to not be in a depression, but in the Great Recession. And I was living it, and it was tough.
So you had this experience in corporate America. April 2008 hits. Were there times during that, because now you said you were 36, right? Doing
I was
this?
37 when I started. Yep.
37. So were there times when you thought, maybe I should go back and find a job if there's even one available?
So I would say there are a couple times through the arc of my business. I've been at it now for 14 years, where I probably should have shut it down. I probably should have done something else. After about the fourth year, I had made it through, if you will, but the cash flow problems were still there. And they say sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I was working really hard, but I didn't see any money, and I was not able to pay bills, as it were. 3:30 in the morning, curled up on the couch, crying myself to sleep, going, what have I just done to myself and my family? And what was hard at the time is I learned that I was optimistic, but it was hard to figure out what was next. So I couldn't put myself back into that world, because I did love getting out there and using my whole brain and actually giving it my best shot. And I stuck with it probably longer than I should have, but here I am today, 14 years later, an overnight success.
So
But those first 12.
hard times, but lots of lessons learned and a lot of optimism.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, there are a lot of traits that everybody needs to have, but the top three has got to be tenacity, stick-to-itiveness, optimism. You've got to believe in yourself. And that's what I did. I bet on myself. And I said, I'm going to dig myself out of it. So every time I was faced with that adversity, that 3:30 in the morning turned into 5 o'clock in the morning, and turned into, I was at the office in the morning making it all happen again, and getting those jobs sold and getting those jobs scheduled, and starting to dig out of it. That's something that I'll definitely hang my hat on. Monetarily didn't feel very good, but looking back on it now, I'm proud of the fact that I was able to stick to it.
Were you alone, or did you have staff at this point? Were you the only one from the trusted toolbox, or did you have a staff now you're responsible for?
So at that point where I was really thinking about shutting it down, so I had staff I was responsible for. I had 8 handymen in the field. I had 3 people working in the office, plus some sales guys. And it was tough because, again, it looked like it could be going well. But I had what we all learned sometimes in business. I wasn't charging enough, and everything was costing me double what I really thought it was. And I had to dig in and make some changes.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I dug in very quickly and made some changes. And I did. I had an office. I had a lease. I had trucks on the road. I had 8 branded vehicles wrapped, running around doing things. But yeah, like I said, it was tough.
Is it harder when it's just you, or is it harder when you have staff that has family that you are now responsible for their well-being?
I think it's harder when you have the staff. Today we're at 40 employees plus subcontractors working, and that doesn't drive me in the morning, because I think that would paralyze me a little bit to think about what would happen if, again, being optimistic. It's definitely harder when you have other people. You're like, you'd have to go in there and say, look, we're just shutting it down. And that was hard, because you'd have to say it out loud.
And then do you admit failure, or do you admit that it's just timing?
At the time, I would have said failure. Absolutely. That was the big F word. I put another F word right in front of that usually. And looking back on it now, and talking with other entrepreneurs quite a bit, I actually have my own podcast as well, and bring other entrepreneurs on to talk about it. I don't think it's failure. 11,000 businesses are started every hour in the U.S. alone. If you think about that number, it's staggering. So there's a lot of quote unquote failures, but is it really failure? But maybe it's just, you learned and you had to move on. And that's something I think I could accept now, that if I felt like this wouldn't work today, but we'll have to see how this next go around with perhaps recession or slowing economy. I don't know if we'll have a big recession like we've ever had before, but so that was tough. Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the lessons that you may have learned from either the process going through 2008, as you said, 4 years later, things started to turn around, correct?
Correct.
What were some of the lessons you learned either from just the experiences, or even maybe some of your staff? Like, were they supportive? Were they aligned with your vision and dream?
They were aligned with my vision and dream. They also didn't know I was going through this struggle or wrestling with the fact that I might shut it down. Because
Okay.
again, as a you ask, is it better to be alone? I think you're always alone if you're running your own business. It's tough. I found some great groups. I'm part of a mastermind group that helps me not be alone as much. But yeah, if I would have come in and admitted that, I think I would have, number one, I would have lost people because
Yeah.
they would have not seen, that somebody saying, hey, I'm going to shut my business down. Well, that's not a vision. That's a shutdown.
Yeah.
That's going the wrong way. That's not an inspiring leader. So I kept a lot of that stuff to myself.
Which is smart because you don't want to cause worry for others when they don't see the numbers. They're not open to that
Right.
information.
And if I would have come in and said, I'm worried that we're going to be shutting it down, and I put that out there on the team, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think about it for a minute, I'm not an inspiring leader, so we're going to dig out of this and go up. We're going to unravel this thing and go down. That's why I definitely kept it to myself. That's one definite thing that I would say I've learned. I learned that I had to fix things and fix things quickly. You can't be a corporate manager and get a team together, come up with a consensus, and then roll out an initiative. Didn't have time for that. I had to move pretty quickly to make payroll. And 14 years later, I have never missed payroll. Knocking on wood right now.
That's great.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that to get them lined up with, I'm going to give this that one big shot, and this is what we're going to do. Yeah, I think they were always aligned with me and my vision on that one.
Do you have a right-hand man or woman who is there by you since the beginning?
My number one office employee has been with me for 14 years, of my
Awesome.
14 and a half. She is the office manager. No, I don't confide in her as much. Again, keeping her lined up with the vision. I do have somebody here at my office. His name is Ed. So he is my steady Eddie. He is the one who helps me keep my highs not so high and my lows not so low. He definitely is somebody that I knock some things around. Again, not all of it, but hey, let's go look at this. Let's go look at this. Let's go figure out how we do this better. And he's been definitely a good sounding board.
That's great. So now 2008, you're humming along 4 years later, 2017, 18, life is good, business is good. When did all of a sudden you start to see or experience that there was going to be a major shift?
On March 9th, I was supposed to be meeting a consultant coming in talking about another business venture I was going to start called the Home Service Institute to help train other home service companies. And he said, hey, Chris, I can't come in today. Can we just meet on the phone? I said, sure, man. What's up? He says, hey, I'm worried. I think my business is going down. It's going to get shut down. I said, what can I do to help? And he said, help? You're going down with me. He said, this is going to shut the entire country. This is going to shut the world down. This is March 9th of 2020. And I went, oh, God, man, you're crazy. You're like Chicken Little. The sky has fallen. No way, no way. But I started that thinking process. I had ridden it up to the point I was now. I could scale it back and get through it. Thought through it a little bit, used the sounding board, Steady Eddie, to talk it through a little bit.
Yeah.
And here in Atlanta, by March 16th, one of the things I did is I acted very quickly. I asked the office staff to take a 25% pay cut. I laid off 2 of my project managers because I knew projects would stop. I went down to our best 12 handymen. At the time, we had 18. And I laid off my sales manager, and everybody went 100% commission. And I put 2 guys on the shelf because we couldn't go in and do estimates. We thought at the time it would take 2 months from March 16th, which happened to be my birthday. And what I said is, okay, Memorial Day is where I've got to get to. Now, remember, for a lot of us, we didn't think the government was going to help. I mean, of course they wouldn't, right? Of course not. In fact, when I first heard that, I mean, when's the last time you had the government knocking on the door saying, here's some money and we're here to help? You'd be like, oh boy, what's going on? So we buckled down. I thinned it down very quickly. I was actually able to run profitably for those 2 months. I was able to go distributed workforce. So we were deemed an essential business. We were able to work in people's houses on the outside. If we worked on the inside, we would always plastic off everything and work away from people so we weren't in there, and did all the social distancing and everything that we had to do. And then our governor here in Georgia said, far be it for me to say you're not essential. And we opened up relatively quickly compared to the rest of the world, as it were, definitely the rest of the U.S. So we were up and cranking in July. I mean, in July, I was like, I actually looked at somebody and said, you know what? For the first time ever, I'm in the right spot. I'm in the right business. This is great. I got the money. I brought everybody back when I got the PPP money. I paid them all back the money. I put everybody back on staff, and we were busier than anything. And I thought, oh, God, this is great. I'm up. Guess what I couldn't find after that? People to work.
Yeah.
Couldn't get anybody to work. So
Yeah.
I struggle with that. Here we are in 22, even as early as this summer, we were still short. We are now back up to a full complement of people, but it was hard. So you always are pivoting and trying to figure out how to solve those problems. Even when you think you're back on top, you're not. You
Yeah.
still got to be watching out for it. So
Yeah.
resiliency even happens when things are going great.
It's been, the same in the hospitality industry, restaurants and bars and the travel industry where I was can't find help. They've either, moved on, retired, they've, felt it enough times to say, I need to be in a more stable industry, perhaps. When you don't have the employees to execute, that's just as much of a challenge for sure.
Yeah, that definitely is a challenge. And again, back to your background and where we are, customer service is paramount in our company. That's one of the ways that we have really been able to grow is to be the biggest handyman in Atlanta is our customer experience and our customer service model is superior and we're really focused on it. But you can't do that if you don't have the people.
Yeah.
And I've even had good friends of mine say, well, people understand, they get it. And I said, okay, what would you like? And they said, well, I'm looking to change out my refrigerator. I said, yeah, you can't get that for 12 months. Well,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. I'll go out and find it myself. I said, there you go. See, you just proved it yourself. People don't understand when you don't have the people, you can't provide that level of service. So
Yeah.
if you're going to pick up one tip from this one, if you go into a restaurant, man, relax.
Yeah.
Let those people do their thing because at
Yeah.
least they're there working.
Exactly. Get the drink and enjoy it.
That's right. Yep. Yep. So it's hard because it is easy to get frustrated, especially in the restaurant world or hospitality. You expect things to be a certain way and perform at a certain level, and you just can't if you don't have the people.
Even in the United States, I think that we are, especially Northeast, I think, and I could be totally wrong, but we are about instant gratification. We want it yesterday. There's no patience. And you go to other parts of the world, especially the Caribbean, where you are on a whole other different clock.
Exactly right. So in the hospitality industry, I use a lot of those analogies in our business. Here's what you got going for you. If you have a restaurant or you have a hotel, people are coming to your place of business to get served. I'm going into people's houses to serve them. So I'm going into their turf. And you want instant gratification. That's my customer service secret number one, is I
Yeah.
teach all my guys. When you get there, they think the job's already done. Number two, they're going to buy from people, not from companies. So you got to sit there and smile and you've got to help understand that they're anxious because they're worried you're going to screw something up, take their money, run, not do the job right, or try to use some shoddy material. So yeah, customer experience is definitely, it's definitely on the rise. In fact, if you're not good at it today, you will probably not be around in a short time.
Let's tap into that a little bit about customer service. Your guys and gals who work for you, what does onboarding look like for that kind of customer service to be able to represent the brand that you have created?
Yeah, great question. So our onboarding process, we're actually going to get ready to overhaul it. What do? You have to admit that something's not working well. And the only way I can do it is to say, okay, it's broken, let's fix it. But we still feel like we have a good onboarding process today. It just needs to be better. So what we do today is they go and you go on site with our guys and you work with them. We have a checklist driven company. So we use checklists to help them understand what needs to be done. Then they sit with me for an hour and a half and we go over the culture of our company. I'm a big believer that your culture is created, and if you don't create it, it will be created for you. And
Oh, that's so brilliant.
the culture I wanted to create was a customer first culture of professional handymen, professional home repair specialists. So what we do is we challenge them to be artists. We start talking about the phrases that you're going to do. We invite them into our wolf pack because a lot of these guys are skilled trades. Oh, they are skilled trades. Not a lot of them. All of them are. And that's kind of like your artists, a great guitar player, a great pianist, a great drummer, right? They're a gig economy worker, but they believe in themselves. And you have to invite them to come into and we call it our wolf pack, that you can do better for yourself here than you would if you were on your own.
Someone said to me when they asked me what I do, and I was explaining, and they said, "Oh, you're like a utility player." I had not heard that, even though I'm a sports fanatic, not so much as my husband, but a sports fanatic. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. You come in where it's needed." But a wolf from the movie Pulp Fiction has come up twice now, and I said, that's an interesting one. You're there to clean up the mess."
That's right. I challenge my wolves because they were able to do work in houses on their own. So a lot of these guys don't even have resumes, been working on their own by themselves.
Yeah.
And I need them to be problem solvers in the field. I need them to solve the problems at the customer's house because
Yeah.
if they don't, then the problem comes back to us in the office. And like I said, people buy from people. And if you
Right.
can't see me at your house and you think I'm in some office, I'm not as responsive as the person sitting in front of you. We have to be very careful that we don't choke our wolves down to become domesticated dogs where all the problems become ours.
Oh, that's so brilliant. You mentioned that you wrote a book and it started during the pandemic. Talk about resilience. Tell us about this book.
Yeah, I've always joked that I was going to write a book one day. Remember, I got my master's in mechanical engineering, and for my thesis, I got referred to the writing department because my advisor at the time told me I was a horrible writer. Uh, so I always joke that when I write my book, but I just started putting stuff down on a piece of paper, and it came together, and it's called From the Zoo to the Wild. And what I talk about is my journey from corporate America into starting a home service business. Developing my wolf pack is one of the chapters in the book, talking about how I had to fix processes very quickly to scale. So I think it's really a two-part book: how to start one, and then also how to scale one, and that is a business. It's available on Amazon. I've gotten a lot of feedback. It's an easy read. It's a good complement to a number of other great books that are out there. So if you want to go check it out, From the Zoo to the Wild, I'm pretty proud of that one. Yeah.
Great. We'll have that in the show notes for sure. So I know when we met, we had great conversation in your mobile office in the car, which was awesome. It just goes to show that hybrid can be really anywhere, right? You could be in a
Absolutely.
car and conduct business or anywhere else. But you are a foodie,
I am.
and that's a favorite subject of mine. So before we close it out, what is some of your favorites of food and wine that you enjoy?
Okay, I'm ready. So I think I also love to cook. Growing up as an Italian, who never went to an Italian restaurant until he was 21 years old.
Wait a minute,
Uh,
wait a minute. You never went to an Italian restaurant until you're 21 and you grew up Italian?
yeah, we always cooked at home. We never went out
Oh,
for
okay,
that.
okay,
So
got
we
it.
always went to other restaurants. We never went to this. So I think I make a pretty mean chicken piccata. I've got a pretty good meat sauce, although my family doesn't like eating meat, so I don't make it as much. But when it comes to wine, I am a big Napa Cab fan. My favorite is Sherwin Family. It's a great cab. I love pairing it up. I love the food so much that I'm taking my office staff and estimators for a strategic offsite meeting in January of next year. And it's called Team Building with Taste. We're going to meet in the morning for 4 hours, work on our plan, and then we're going to go off and do cooking competitions in the afternoon.
I love that. So, one of the things that I did when I was in the travel industry, we used to have quarterly managers meetings. I was in charge of Eastern and Central region, and I had them all come in with our leadership. It was a surprise. So, we did our full day meeting. And that evening, we went to a loft in downtown Manhattan and we did a kind of like a chopped. So we all had different stations. We cooked our dinner. It was team A, team B. There was a photo booth in there. There was a bar. It was just a great way rather than the stodgy, long table and you all sit around and you have to, pardon somebody to move to somebody else's seat. It was just really great. And it's such a great way to collaborate and connect with people. So
I
that
think
sounds awesome.
Yeah, the food side is big. So again, I've got a lot of construction workers that work for me. What we do is we open up the back of our office usually every 2 months and we grill out on a Friday afternoon, call it happy hour. I've got a lot of guys who love to cook and we're down here in the South and I am proud to say I've got a couple cast iron skillets. I use those a lot as well. But I
Yeah.
got some guys who love to smoke meats and grill and do things. So we always put out some pretty good spreads and break bread together.
Wow, what a great way to bring people together. Is nothing better than food and wine. I applaud you for that. So where's the event going to be? In Georgia?
It is. It's going to be in Atlanta. It's just literally 5 miles from our office. I happen to have somebody just bring it up to me. She told me at 12:30, and by 4 o'clock, I had signed a contract for a month from now because I didn't want to lose out. I was like, "Oh, we got to do this. We've got to do this. I love it."
Wow. Does the team know yet?
They do. Yeah, I rolled it out to them, and I actually have talked about it. They're all pretty excited. They actually have already checked out the system, and we're going to be cooking Italian, which is even better. So we're going to get to try our stuff there. What's funny too in the remodeling, just real quick, two of my project managers have been classically trained in culinary institutes,
Oh,
and
nice.
over the years, it's amazing the corollaries between restaurant business and the creation of food and
Yeah.
the creation of bathroom remodels, kitchen remodels.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with creating and being an artist.
That is so true because it is an art form. And then you can walk away and see the end product and be so proud of it. So that's pretty awesome. So you talked about pivoting before we close out. You talked about pivoting and changing up when needed. Is there anything big that's going to be happening in the Trusted Toolbox? Any changes in your industry, in your business for 2023?
Well, for us, we're going to try to double our remodeling capability and the revenues for that. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge given what I think the economy is going to do. I think we are going to cool off a little bit. It's not going to be as heated. And we got to figure out how to capitalize on that cooling off and by using our brand. So I don't know if that's big. We've opened up another branch in a city about an hour and a half from here, and I just got them started. So I want to see them get off the ground.
Wow. You mentioned another branch. Do you think you will franchise to other states?
So I have not franchised the concept. I'm going to go with corporate stores for now and
Okay.
see if I am planning right now to open another one so I could have 3 branches running, Atlanta and then these 2 satellites, and then have a big remodeling capability here in the Atlanta area.
Great, great. Well, we'll have all of the information regarding your locations and the information about the company in the show notes. Chris, this has been an absolute pleasure. I loved talking about your leadership, your resilience, and how you are bringing these teams together with food and wine and just really customer service first. That's pretty awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story. And I'm glad that you decided to stick with it and you're not curling up on the couch anymore crying.
Yeah, me too. Yes. No, I've had fun. So hopefully the energy came across to your audience because actually I'm more energized right now to go back to work myself.
Yeah, there you go. All the best to you and the company. We'll definitely make sure that all the listeners have information about your book and the company and your locations.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back soon with a brand new episode of the Hart Inspired podcast. Until then, I'm your host, Michelle Delgado. I welcome you to support the show by rating us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. To learn more about Hart Metrics Consulting, book a strategy call by visiting the website at hartmetrics.com.